sisi wananchi kunyakuwa uhuru ya sisi wananchi na haki ya jasho letu na haki ya jasho letu tumekataa kupiga shoti mbele ya hata kupiga shoti bila shaka mbele ya watu waji bila shaka sisi pia ni watu hali yao tumeikata tuhajayakuwa mashamba yetu tupigania kuwa mashamba yetu tupiganie uhuru wetu utamaduni na viwanda vyetu utamaduni na viwanda vyetu komboe sisi hatutaki kudhaliliwa hatutaki tena hatutaki tena maushewaji akina ilikupe tusichanushe akina uhuru Kenya Kenya yetu wa Kenya tulikomboa Kenya na haki wa Kenya tulikomboa na haki zetu wa Kenya tupiganie na haki zetu wa Kenya tupiganie na Congress wetu wa Kenya na Congress wetu wa Kenya
Old faces. And thank you so much for blessing the cause that we have been in this. I'm excited to see a couple of old faces, but I'm also happy to see we have been within this many new faces as we prepare that have also had an opportunity to join us. I'm also happy to see, of course, including the media, many new faces. So we've been joined by a couple of us. We have Knchr, we have including the media, we have the German embassy. So we've been joined by a couple of us. We have Knchr, we have ODP, human rights, the German embassy from Knchr, we have social justice center, Defenders Coalition, Nairobi County, Midrift, human rights network all the way from Knchr, National Research Center, the Nairobi County, Global Action, Knchr, the Philippine Union, Lona, and Knchr, Global Action, more to become Knchr. So I want to kindly request that you do a quick round of introduction. So you tell us you expect more to become and your institution. So I want to kindly request that we do a quick round of introductions. So you tell us your name and your institution very quickly.
My name is Phoebe from Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Welcome.
Good morning.
My name is Phoebe from Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Good morning.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Robert Owell from the Human Rights Commission.
Good morning. My name is Evelyn Amora.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Robert Owell from the Human Rights Commission.
Good morning. My name is
Favor,
Evelyn
favor.
Amora from Senegal.
My name is James from the Social Justice Centers. Favor, favor. My name is James from the Social Justice Centers.
Good morning, I'm Dennis Sikuri from the Social Justice Centers Working Group. Good morning, I'm Dennis Sikuri from the Social Justice Centers Working Group.
Morning, our name is Knchr from Kenya National Bureau of Statistics.
Good morning. My name is Livington
Morning, our name is
Yango.
Knchr from Kenya National Bureau of Statistics.
Good morning. My name is Livington Yango from
Knchr Social Justice Center. Jambo, naitwa Happy Land, nawakilisha Social Justice Center.
Good morning, Daniel. Good morning.
Hello everyone, I'm also the Executive Coordinator of Knchr. Hello everyone, I'm also the Executive Coordinator of Knchr.
Good morning. My name is Knchr from Iglo. I'm the founder and the director. Good morning. My name is Knchr. I'm the founder and the director of Global Action for Women with Disabilities and of Monster Disabilities. And all the time. My name is Gabriel Chico. Everyone, God is good. And all the time. My name is Gabriel Chico. I'm from Global Action for Women with Disabilities. All the time. My name is Gabriel Chico. I'm from Global Action for Women with Disabilities. All the time. My name is Gabriel Chico.
Good morning.
Joseph
from
My name is Gabriel Chico.
Good morning.
Joseph
Good morning.
everyone. I'm Esther Knchr.
And my name is Samson Omondi, known I think to most of you, if not all. And my name is Samson Omondi on human rights, known I think to
do a lot of
most of you, if not all.
Amongst them.
I serve at the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. We are also joined by our commissioner.
Where I do a lot of things, this being amongst them.
We are also joined by our commissioner. In terms of today, we are going to have a very short event. And will take, in terms of today, we are going to have a very
30 minutes
short event that will take
at most 1 hour from now, at most 1 hour 30 minutes.
Give us very brief opening remarks. I'll ask Commissioner, then I'll take us to the report that will be launching. Give us very brief opening remarks. Then immediately after that, we'll just have a very brief report that will be launching reflection on the report. Then immediately after that, we'll just have a very brief panel conversation. My colleagues are promised me that they give us tea, and then and that's why we call it a breakfast meeting. I've not seen the my colleagues have promised me that they give us tea. So my colleagues are just very tea breakfast meeting. Please, I've not seen the tea, but I hope it is coming as we proceed. So my colleagues are promising us tea. Welcome us before we get into the conversation for the day. Commissioner Karibu.
Good morning, everyone. But we survived. The opening remarks for this beautiful morning. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would want to welcome you to this gathering of mind whose main focus is to promote and protect human rights for all. We gather here today to affirm that defending human rights in Kenya is a fundamental right
that requires urgent attention by all. It is on has launched this report, The Right to Defend the Rights, which reminds us that when Kenya has made important strides in recognizing this principle, our work is far from complete. Between 2020 and 2022, we set out to examine whether Kenya truly promotes a safe and enabling environment for human rights defenders. We look at the key areas, which includes the general framework for protection of rights, freedom of expression and opinion, freedom of association and assembly, participation in public affairs, and liberty and security of persons. Our findings show a stark reality that on paper, Kenyan Constitution and its ratification of international treaties create a strong foundation for human rights. However, in practice, the defenders still face threats, intimidation, arbitrary arrest, and in some cases, violence. While the law promises protection, the reality for many human rights defenders is marked by threats and violence, as we have all seen in the recent past, highlighting a gap between legal provisions and actual experience. Behind the percentages we will be seeing in the report lies significant human cost, including loss of life and suffering of those who have been detained or disappeared. While numbers have declined in some areas, gaps in monitoring means that true scale may be greater. Colleagues, the right to defend rights is a backbone of democratic society. It is the guarantee that even the most marginalized voices will be heard and that power will be held to account. The safety of defender is not just a human rights issue, it is a barometer of health of our democracy. Let us commit today to turning this recommendation into action. Let us work together, the state and non-state actors alike, to create a Kenya where every human rights defender can operate freely, without harassment, without violence, and with full protection of the law. Because when we protect those who defend rights, we protect the rights of us all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And I'll now be speaking about the percentages that she's referred to. But before I begin speaking about the percentages, I think it's important to note that the assessment that we are speaking about this morning focuses 2020, 2021, and 2022. But as you'll see from the findings, that the situation has not changed much, especially in the context of what we've had in the recent past. The demonstrations, the Gen Z, the Sabasaba, of course, last year and all that. So it's very relevant to the conversation that is going on currently, especially in the context of one, promoting and protecting the rights of defenders. And that is why we call it Defend the Defenders. It's Defend the Defenders because no one speaks about the defenders. And it's expected that defenders should be able to defend themselves. Unfortunately, the mechanisms we are having are mechanisms that are very good in paper. But when it comes to really putting this into realization, into the reality, we are faced with the danger that it's actually not enough. So the call we'll be making this morning is, can we really turn this into a reality so that the defenders that actually defend us also get a platform where they can be defended, where they can be promoted, and where they can do their work freely without fear of intimidation, harassment, and threats. So just quickly, then I'm struggling because then I need to remove this. I know you want me to be here, but I need to remove this because I want to use that. So I've spoken about the purpose, which is to present findings of 2020, 2021, and 2022, which focus on analyzing the situation of human rights defenders in Kenya. Now, the question of data source is that the Commission, together working with the Danish Institute for Human Rights, had an online tool that had a couple of parameters that I'll be speaking at some point, which is based on the UN Declaration on the Rights of Defenders, and a couple of legal obligations. The assessment focused on two things. Number one is the enabling environment under which defenders operate, but more particularly, the focus on SDG 1610, particularly indicator 1610.1, which focuses on verified cases of violations against journalists, trade unionists, human rights defenders, and associated media personnel. Now, in doing this, we had a couple of institutions that contributed to the data that we'll be looking at this morning. So we had, of course, the Commission, and at the Commission we have what we call our complaints management system that helps us to analyze a couple of complaints which are reported to us both at the Commission headquarters, from regional offices, as well as those that partners also get to us. Then we have social justice centers, again, that are also spread across all parts of the country. We had Defenders Coalition. We had a couple of human rights networks that are also spread across the country. Then relevant state agencies, and some of them are seated here in the room this morning. So we had IPOA, we had National Police Service, National Crime Research Center of Kenya. So what is the key role? Two things. Number one is we are going to focus on report on our compliance with a couple of human rights obligations. But number two, we are also going to look at how we track progress towards the 2030 agenda. The 2030 agenda focuses on justice, it focuses on freedom, it focuses on the protection of human rights defenders, but also the conversation about advocacy, that having a good law is good, having a good practice is good, but how do we advocate to ensure that there's movement going forward? To ensure that there's movement our population going forward. Grow at 52.4 million. The country context, and this is data from Kenya National Bureau. Population continues to grow at standards of 2.4 million statistics, and the human rights framework that has a country of we are a signatory for a couple of international and regional human rights. The human rights framework is that has a country signing all of them. We are a signatory for a couple of Article 2, international and regional human rights and 2.6 of the Constitution, and we are very good in integrating international laws into our laws. Article 2, and therefore at the international level, where the Constitution, we have come down that these international laws into our laws. At the country level, at the international level, where the treaty making and ratification come down the ratification process and the role that the Parliament plays at the country level. In terms of governance, we have outlined the ratification process and the role that the Parliament plays in this. Okay? In terms of governance, we have a devolved system. So as the in Homa Bay, and we are currently in Homa Bay, we are also speaking about what we want at the national level. We are currently in Homa Bay. Promotion and protection. So as the in Homa Bay, defenders speaking about evolution. So we have the devolved system of government. What we want at the national level. National government promotion and protection of rights, legislation, defenders and nations. So we have the also important that at the county level, of course, there are also a couple of legislation that is taking legislation and some of these also have an. But it's also important that at the county level, there are also some exactly these legislations that will become place here with us, and some of these also have an the challenges we have with inspectors. And I'm exactly this morning posting some of councils here with us, okay? Because so when we know the challenges we have with inspectors, legislation and control when they come to it's also important that the county government also has a particular role to play. So while the national government have a vibrant sector, policy legislation and so over 10,000, it's also important the county government also has the act that we have fought for so much, the Public Benefits Act 2013. Then 2022 we had election, fairly peaceful. We have compared to the other election, reduced malpractices, reduced violations of human rights. We have fought for so much. But what are the public benefits that we have lighting cases Act 2013? Then 2023 we had election, fairly peaceful. We have compared to the other election, reduced everything is on there. Reduced violations of human rights, up. So that's the current situation. But what is the current situation? And that we have cases of as the situation increases, as the situation changes, we have the defenders who are charged with looking at this situation. We have also face challenges because they are the people that are aware that they miss the road. So on a daily basis, up. So that's the current situation. They are faced with all these challenges. I mean. Now, the Kenya has made a lot of commitments on human rights defenders. The defenders who are charged to focus on looking at this situation, of course, also face challenges via commitments. Because they are the people that are aware the rubber meets the road. So on a daily basis, they are faced with all these challenges. There are a couple of Kenya has made a lot of commitments on human rights provided, particularly to defenders. I just want us to focus on the commitments we've made. The need to investigate commitments. Attacks on that. When we leave the third cycle and journalists, January 2020, this was provided by Austria, Estonia, and the Human Rights Councils. Number two, is the need to adopt protection laws provided by particular national standards. Number one, Austria, the need to investigate harms. And number three, the need to uphold freedom of expression and association. This was provided by Austria, in line with Estonia, and Norway, Article 19. Number two, Austria and is the need to adopt protection laws. They need to ensure safety of human rights defenders. Again, Austria and Uruguay. And then the need to enable CSOs, the need to uphold freedom of expression and association that had been there for the longest time possible. I think for over 10 years. Article 19. Ireland. Again, and then they need to remain open to CSOs. Then they need to ensure safety of human rights defenders. What is the status? France. And then they need to enable CSOs and operationalize the PBR that had been there for the longest time possible, I think for over 10 years. Ireland, which was to take place, and then they need to remain open to CSOs and protect human rights. We are waiting for the adoption of the outcome document and how what is the status. We look at some of these recommendations have been implemented, and what is it that we are going to do moving forward. And as we look at what we please and make the space which was to take place in possible for human rights defenders. We are waiting for the adoption of the outcome document. I've spoken about the data sources, of course, the methodology. The extent I had a couple of recommendations have been in the room that participated in. And what is it that we are going to do moving forward to ensure that all these children are there and make the data collection process, analysis of constitutional possible for human rights provisions. Review of a couple of I've spoken about the data sources, of course the methodology. I had a couple of you guys seated in the room that participated in providing reports, this information system, as well as those that are there. The data collection training, that is constitutional, the kind of data that we are looking for, and how review of a couple of clarifications in the reporting status. Then appropriate multi-sectoral, of course, review of our own state and reports, our own data system. And I think one of the things we noticed and partners is that then we also had a training. There's a lot of data, the kind of data that is processed by non-state. How it's expected that data will. Unfortunately, that data remains just at that level. Then appropriate multi-sectoral, it's not official data. Both state and non-state. And one of the things we are trying to do as much as I think one of the commission, of course, working with the National Bureau of there's a lot of data as well as my colleagues from the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights is to try as much as possible to make it just at that level. And that is where there's a lot of conversations. It's not official data. And one of the things we are trying to do as much as possible at the commission, which is then of course working with the National Bureau of making the statistics, as well as my data analysis using SPSS, is to try as much as possible to make this official standard. And that is where there are a lot of now what I'm so in terms of overall assessment, generated data, which is then used for purposes of and we have 5 thematic areas. Data analysis, general measures of implementation, statistics, and then 30% via tables, charts, and graphs. Human rights education, which is provided to state officials. So in terms of overall assessment, our schools, both primary and secondary, is at 56%. And we had 5 thematic areas. Freedom to hold opinion, general measures of implementation, fact information and ideas, is at 30%, is at 54%. Human rights education, information which is provided to state officials, public
which is at
institutions,
90%.
our schools, both primary and secondary,
school
is at
assemblies,
56%.
and you all know the struggles that we've had with this.
Freedom to hold
is at
opinion
40%,
and to
then
freedom to join
information and
ideas
ideas and participate in associations.
is
Access to information scores the highest.
Participation in the conduct
Which
of
is at
public
90%.
affairs, equal and
Freedom to hold peaceful assemblies, and you all know the
around
struggles that
elections
we've had
at
with this.
75%.
Is at
Then
40%.
security of the
Then
person
freedom to join,
abuse,
operate,
70%,
and participate in associations.
arrest, detention,
is at 62%.
access to court and remedy,
Participation in the conduct
of public
is
affairs,
at 67%.
equal and universal.
So from this, you
work
notice
around
that,
elections at 75%.
Those areas that matter to us as
the
human rights
persons
defenders,
of abuse,
we are not scoring very well. And I think
arrest,
the worst one
detention,
is the one at
effective access to
the one
court
on
and
freedom
remedy
of
and all
peaceful
that.
assemblies.
Is
And
at
you notice the struggle that
67%.
we faced, I think, over the last
So
2
from
years,
this,
when it comes
you
to
notice
exercising
that,
Article 37 of those areas that matter to us as human rights defenders, we are not
so
scoring
in
very
terms
well.
of general framework,
And in fact, the worst one is the one at the one on freedom to hold peaceful assemblies.
So
And
what
you
are
know
the
the struggle
identified
that we faced, I think, over the
Number
last
one
2 years,
is
when
that we
it
do
comes
not
to
have a
exercising
specific
Article
law
37
that deals
of
with
the
The
Constitution.
Commission has tried as much as possible, including
So
the
in terms of general
framework,
36% don't see the light of the day.
and we don't have a specific law in the country.
So what
that
are the
deals with
identified
human
gaps?
rights defenders? Number one
Number two
is that we do not have
is
a
that we
specific
have
law
a
that
couple
deals
of
with
delays
human rights
when it
defenders.
comes to reporting on treaty.
The Commission has tried as much as
obligations.
possible, including
And
developing
we
a
are
model
law
law.
goals that we delay.
Unfortunately, do not see the light of
Then,
the day.
as
So we
recommendations,
don't have a specific law
There's
in the
incomplete
country
implementation
implementation of those recommendations.
and I
Number
spoke
two
about the recommendations that were
is
given
that we
at
have
the,
a couple of delays
when it comes to reporting on treaty obligations. And you'll be speaking to those that we delayed. Then, as recommendations come, there's incomplete implementation of those recommendations. And I spoke about the recommendations that were given at the
Some of these
the third UP.
are available in paper, but when it comes to their implementation, when it comes to putting them to practice, it's not happening. So those gaps make us score very poorly when it comes to general framework, which is at 36%. On freedom of opinion and
Some of these
expression, we are available in paper, but when it comes to their implementation,
On freedom
when it
to
comes
hold
to putting them to
opinion,
practice,
we are
it's not
54%.
happening. So those
access to
gaps
information at 90%.
make us score very poorly when it
And
comes
on
to
this,
general framework,
there are
which is
strong
at 36%.
guarantees that when you look
On
at what is
freedom of
provided by the
opinion and
Constitution,
expression, we
it's
are
very clear on how
72%,
we need to access
and we call it moderate strong.
information, on how expression
On
is
freedom to
carried
hold
out and
opinion,
all that. We are at 54%, but censorship
access
exists to information at 90%. And we've had cases where there have been censorship in terms of access
constitutional
to information.
guarantees that when you
Look at most of these censorships are done illegally, and they all go unaddressed. On freedom of assembly and association, 51%, low moderate, and this comprises of assembly, which is 40, misuse of Public Order Act, particularly, violent dispersals of demonstrations, and arbitrary arrests of human rights defenders. And of course, under that we now have kidnapping. It goes now just beyond arbitrary arrest. That we have kidnapping of assembly, which is 40, misuse of Public Order Act, particularly, violent dispersals of demonstrations, and arbitrary arrests of human rights defenders. And of course, under that we now have kidnapping. It goes now just beyond arbitrary arrest. That we have kidnapping, and we have people that will never be found. Association, we are at 62%, again, strong constitutional protection, and with the judiciary actively providing remedies against those violations. Participation in public affairs, we are at 75%, again, strong, robust constitutional provision, and public participation mechanisms that provide on how members of the public as well as human rights defenders can participate in public affairs. Weaknesses, particularly limited business obligation to consult HR experts despite a national action plan which has been adopted by Kenya, and the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights did a lot of work in just putting this together. Then liberty and security of the person, again, 68% moderate. As usual, a strong legal framework. existence of oversight bodies like IPOA, National Police Service Commission, of course, Knchr. What is the problem? Big. That there are a couple of misconducts that are carried out by law enforcement agencies. Of course, with the police leading, and our colleagues from the several county inspectorates. Coupled with that, we have law investigation, and we know what happened. We've not seen people being dragged to the court, so law investigation, and of course conviction rates. So there'll be investigation, there might be prosecution, but in terms of conviction, is that the rates are very low. Key insights, we perform well in terms of access to information and public participation, but structural gaps exist. So the question is, how can we ensure that we deal with these structural gaps, particularly on the right to assembly? Violations against defenders, killings, 4 reported in 2021, 2020, none, 3 in 2022. Enforced disappearances, 2 in 2020 in terms of numbers. Then later on, none have been recorded in later years. Arbitrary detention, highest in 2020 with 96 cases, followed by 36 in 2021, none recorded in 2022. Now this is interesting, the next one, which is no recorded cases of kidnapping or torture. And I know we've had a lot of struggles, particularly with the National Police Service, that we know torture exists. We know we have a Prevention of Torture Act. But in terms of the thresholds, and it will be interesting to hear from my friends from the ODPP, in terms of threshold, and I know the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution has gone ahead and even developed a specific charge sheet to be used for prosecuting cases of torture. Unfortunately, we are lagging behind on this, and I know the challenges that the Commission particularly faces when it comes to reporting, investigating, and seeking redress for victims of torture. So the trend suggests that there's some improvement, of course, at that time. But this could also point to the fact that there are gaps when it comes to monitoring. So the fact that cases are not there would not necessarily mean that they are not happening. It could be that they are happening, but there are problems when it comes to reporting, monitoring, documenting, and just bringing them to fore. So I think the question we need to ask ourselves is, how can we ensure that we up our game on this, particularly on torture, because there's a whole struggle there in terms of bringing to fore what is taking place. Again, on general framework, key findings, general measures, treaty ratification. Of course, I know you know all that we have ratified, but there's a key one that we have not ratified. The enforced disappearance, the one on that, enforced disappearance and convention on migrant workers. Then at Kenya, we don't like ratifying the optional protocols. I think that's where we draw the line. So we can ratify the treaty, but the optional protocols that of course provide enhanced mechanisms, including making direct complaints to various agencies, particularly the UN, that is where we stop. So we cannot make direct complaints despite the fact that some of these violations would happen in the country. Nothing would happen on them, but we say because we have not finished, we've not exhausted all the local remedies. So there are those that are significant, particularly for defenders. We have CMW, then we have the one on enforced disappearance, which safeguards against targeted disappearances. And colleagues, this is important because the number of enforced disappearances continue to rise day in, day out. And I think as we head towards, of course, we keep talking about elections, as we head towards elections, and as agitation continues on different aspects, we are likely to see increased enforced disappearances. Now, in the absence of us signing this, and we know the local mechanisms have refused or have not had the ability to deal with this, a lot of more advocacy needs to be carried out so that, particularly this on enforced disappearances, we get a way of having it ratified. Reporting performance, CRC, due in 2021. Again, we delayed. We submitted it in 2022. CRPD, due in 2022. Still pending up to now. I know there's work that is going on it. Then 2015-20 recommendations, a couple of them partially implemented. Of course, we accept, but after accepting, we don't implement. Midterm review of the fall cycle, only partial progress. Key insight on this, we must all work towards, we must all do a lot of advocacy towards ensuring that we have a strong treaty base for protection of human rights defenders. But we must also bring it down at the local level and ensure that we have a local law that will help us deal with promotion and protection of rights of defenders. So this is just the table that speaks about the recommendations, those that we have implemented, those that we have not implemented from a couple of treaty mechanisms. In terms of a national framework, of course we have the Commission, which is an A status. The mandate is to advise government, review policies, investigate human rights violations, provide redress, do awareness creation, increase the capacity of actors to protect and promote human rights, work with state and non-state actors, and we are very strong in that. Again, the challenge of lack of a national law recognizing the roles of human rights defenders. At the beginning, I spoke about a draft human rights defender policy that the Commission develops, of course, with partners. This is yet to be adopted. But the Commission faces a lot of challenges, that we have limited resources just to deliver on those functions that I've spoken about. So whether it's on advocacy, whether it's on litigation, whether it's human rights education, whatever it is, that we face a couple of funding challenges. But also coupled with that is now the inability to implement some of the recommendations that we put forward. That, of course, we'll do advocacy, but nothing will go against that. Nothing will be done on that. So key insight, can we get a way of dealing with these gaps that stop the Commission and, of course, other actors from functioning well on this? Human rights education, how we are doing, of course, at primary, secondary, upper secondary, law enforcement, military personnel, immigration, and prison staff. I know colleagues, there are a couple of us sitting in this room that have participated in developing of curriculum, particularly for National Police Service. And of course, when we got the new constitution, and we had a couple of changes within the National Police Service, they changed from the names from the training facilities. And we know the current training curriculum has good human rights content. But the question has always been the extent to which that is being impacted on the trainees. But the next one is the question on how they implement that when it comes to daily policing. So we speak about good arrest procedures. We speak about rights of arrested persons. We speak about minimum requirements. To what extent does that translate when a defender is arrested? And Olal, we've been with you to Central Police Station a couple of times, and others. And you find that defenders face a lot of challenges, particularly when it comes to just the officers knowing how they need to do the arrest, how they need to handle them, how they need to handle their visitors and all that. So the human rights content exists and is provided to them. But how this is impacted when it comes to the work that is done, I think that remains a challenge. So work around ensuring that there's human rights training, particularly for non-commissioned military personnel. And you all know the challenges we have with the military, how we need to ensure that the vulnerable groups, particularly juvenile, women, migrants, refugees, and all that, they are provided for as is required. Freedom of expression and opinion, strong legal protection again. The guarantees are provided under Article 33. We had the landmark ruling of 2017 that struck down the issue of criminal defamation. But there are a lot of ongoing threats to human rights defenders, particularly the slap suits that are used to silence criticism. Those of us that work with the big multinationals, and you know what happens when human rights defenders speak about the violations that happen to some of these big multinationals. We know that there are those that have lost their lives. We know that there are those that have been threatened. We know that there are those that have even been forced to migrate from the country because the situation is just too tough for them. And we know some of these multinationals have a lot of leverage. They have a lot of power. So dealing with them, an individual human rights defender, a strong mechanism behind you remains a challenge. So the slap suits, I think, is a big problem. The second thing which is a big problem is linked media censorship. And I think just recently we saw during the last demonstration when the Communications Authority attempted to shut down live coverage. And we know what happened in the absence of live coverage. And we know that moving forward, we are likely to see more of those. So what does that mean to violations that would happen during that period? And what is it that we can do to ensure that we hold those that do this to account? Now, for the 3 years, we recorded 23 online and 11 offline. Then out of the remedies, 22 of the 23 and 9 of the 3 went unresolved. So again, in terms of overall trends, a good legal base, but human rights defenders, particularly when it comes to freedom of expression and opinions, challenges still exist to them. Access to information, this is the highest, 90. Legal basis is Article 35, right to access info held by state, right to info held by another person if needed, and Access to Information Act. The implementation measures is we have public institutions must designate officers stroke office for information requests. And I don't know how many public institutions here have people that they have designated to deal with information requests that come. Because I know human rights defenders from time to time will visit public institutions looking for information. But you find that in most of those cases, you may not even get that information because there's no an officer who is designated. And in most cases, when you come, you'll be told, come again, come again, come again, until you get tired. So how are public institutions dealing with this so that human rights defenders can know that if I'm going to ODPP, there's a particular officer that will be responsible for providing with information. If I go to Knchr, there's a particular officer that will be responsible for providing with information that will then aid me in doing my work. Of course, this will enhance transparency and accountability, and this aligns with the UN Declaration on Human Rights Defenders, Article 14, which is promoting understanding of human rights. Gaps and recommendations, key human rights documents, the UN Declaration, and of course a couple of treaties that are mostly in English. And one of the conversations we have been having is it possible for us to translate some of these treaties into a language that can be accessible and that can be known by most of us? Like in Kenya, can we think of translating these treaties into Kiswahili? Just as an example. Minor accessibility, those of us that are working with indigenous groups and that are working with marginalized groups, persons with disabilities and all that, they cannot access this. And the recommendation we are putting into this is, can we translate into local languages that will ensure that there's a wider reach, but there's also inclusivity. Freedom of assembly, critical for HRGs to operate effectively. This is protected both by our constitution as well as international instruments. And on this, we looked at legal protection, we looked at the barriers, and then we looked at law enforcement conduct, and then documented violations. So what are the identified issues? Number one is on peaceful assemblies. The conversation about the notification. And the struggle is always, is it notification or is it permission? We know law enforcement officers call it permission. And they will say, you brought it, asking for permission, but we have denied you permission. The law does not give them power to deny you that permission. So the conversation about notification, the conversation about misuse by police to deny protest without cause, because the law is very clear that they need to give you reasons why they are saying you will not protest, which again should be in writing. But you know it's always blanket. You will not demonstrate. You ask the reason, they say we don't have, or they'll not tell you. And in most cases, they'll say orders from above. Omondi says so. Orders from above, no demonstration. Of course, you brought the notification, which for them is permission. Particularly on this, the excessive use of force and firearms. A very robust National Police Service Act, the sixth schedule that focuses on use of force and firearms, that provides for conditions under which lethal force and firearms can be used. But what is it that we have seen? From 2011, when we enacted the Act, I mean, we've continued to witness excessive use of force and firearms. Of course, death, leading to lifelong injuries. And this continues. I saw the CS the other day giving guidelines, and I think what I asked myself is, okay, between the guidelines and what the law provides for, which one is more important? Okay? Between the guidelines and what the law provides for under the sixth schedule, and of course the Act, which one is more important? Will we be saying we follow the guidelines and we leave what the law says? So this remains a challenge, and we've had deaths, we've had injuries. Human rights defenders continue to face a lot of challenges when it comes to this. Training gaps, conversation around that. On freedom of association, Article 36, the PBOA Act, and of course the Society and Community Groups Registration Act. Challenges, freedom registration process is often rigorous, opaque, and discouraging. That we know it's become increasingly difficult to register an organization because there are a lot of things that you need to, a lot of obstacles that you need to deal with. So how do we ensure that human rights defenders are able to register? How do we ensure that they are able to work around in the context of promotion and protection of human rights? Positive legal development, the issue of 30th April 2025, the provisions were declared unconstitutional. The key outcome of that is it removed mandatory re-registration and sweeping disclosure obligations, which was expected that a couple of these organizations will have to undergo re-registration. And we hope that moving forward, this is going to ensure that there's a strengthened safeguard for privacy for institutions, so that we do not have these infringements of their privacy, considering the delicate work that they do. Participation in public affairs, again, a good framework, policy and legal. Key findings, I think we did fairly well in the last general election, but inclusion measures, particularly for the marginalized, remains a challenge. Of course, women, the LGBTQI group and all that. Businesses rarely conduct meaningful consultation. The Commission has worked on a national action plan and policy on business and human rights. And one of the things that policy calls for is meaningful participation. Again, that is not being carried out well. And I think particularly on this, we had in 2022, particularly the Supreme Court, the BBI ruling, that singled out the issue of public participation and what is it that needs to be carried out. 2022 general election, we marked major steps in representation, but the gaps remain, particularly for the marginalized, women, PWDs, and the opportunity here is we need to look at Article 100 of the Constitution that focuses on inclusion. Liberty and security, again, good constitutional safeguards, and we have the institutions there, Knchr, NPSC, but there's also something that we established called the National Coroner Service, which has also been lying somewhere. Findings, again, strong laws, but the misconduct still continues, particularly by law enforcement agencies. State protection for human rights defenders continue to, of course, face challenges, and we know CSOs are particularly affected by this. Then there's a lot of persistent mistrust between state and human rights defenders, which undermines cooperation. I think one of the rallying calls we have always been calling that it is not only Kenya National Commission on Human Rights that should be cooperating with human rights defenders, that all state agencies are expected to cooperate with human rights defenders. But state agencies view HRDs with a lot of suspicion, and they call them troublemakers. So, I mean, in the context of that, you find that they are not able to work well on a couple of areas, whether it comes to whether you're working on business and human rights, whether you're working on rights of arrested person, whatever area you're working on, a human rights defender will always be seen as a troublemaker that no one wants to get close to around. And I think one of the things they always ask us at the Commission, how do you work with these difficult people? So as state agencies, we need to ask ourselves, how can we work with human rights defenders? Because they play a very important role when it comes to the work that we do at various levels. So key gaps, again, no fully institutionalized state-led protection for human rights defenders, delayed stroke impartial investigation into abuses, or I dare say none. And we know how difficult it is for some violations just to be investigated. Of course, there are those that none will be investigated. Then limited action on patterns of violence against human rights defenders, particularly those who are working on sensitive areas, say on sexual orientation. Those that are working at the community level, that they will be completely limited in action. So obligations that the state must ensure that the safety, they investigate abuses, prompt, and give special consideration to human rights defenders that are at risk. Misconduct. 20, yeah, this is important, that we continue to rise. In 2020, we did 5 cases of misconduct by law enforcement agencies. In 2021, we were at 3. 2022, we were at 23. I'm sure 2023, 2024, 2025, the numbers keep increasing, the numbers keep rising. And it's a concern for the safety of human rights defenders that the people that are mandated by law to protect us are the people that violate us. So where do we go to report? Where do we get redress? And what is it that we can do to ensure that our safety is enhanced, our safety is provided for? So cases of misconduct should actually concern all of us. Because in the event that we are violated, the place where we go to seek first redress is a police station. And it's a big struggle that the person who has violated you is the person that you are going to seek help from. So this is a big problem. And we need to have a conversation on how we deal with this. Arrest, detention, and access to remedy. Article 49 and 50 on the rights of arrested persons. A couple of trainings that have been done for judicial officers on human rights, and Commission has been undertaking this. Of course, also including police service. And I also know that there are also a lot of actors in this room that also train these actors. But the data that we have shows that there are multiple violations that are affect human rights defenders, particularly by this group. So how can we deal with that? So barriers to accessing justice is high cost awards in public interest cases discourage human rights defenders litigation. Olal, that you are told this has been won and you have to pay. So human rights defenders will sit and say, I can only go with this case if I'm sure I'm going to win. Because if I lose, I'll be slapped with costs. And the me in me is not able to afford some of these costs. And I know a couple of human rights defenders, particularly bloggers, that are facing a lot of challenges with these high costs of litigation. Then inadequate language interpretation, particularly for the minorities. Then unlawful detention of children, including with adults. This has persisted. That we still have children that get into conflict with the law, and because our facilities do not accommodate children, in most cases, the officer in charge would have no choice. That if the child is a girl, we'll go into women's cell. If the child is a boy, we'll go into men's cell. And we know violations that come with this. Concerns? The issue of unconvicted remandees, which also includes human rights defenders. Lengthy trial processes, and we know how that affects access to justice. And we know human rights defenders need that environment. You need to know that if something happens to you, if you take a matter, it's going to be dealt with expeditiously, because that will help you move to the next stage. Now, conclusion. Number one is that we have a very strong legal framework in terms of constitution, in terms of legislations, and in terms of treaty commitments. Very good up there. What is the implementation gap? That the laws are not fully translated into practice. So if you look at what the Constitution provides for, if you look at what the various acts that we have provides for, if you look at what is provided for at the international level, the extent to which we put that into practice has remained a consistent and a consistent challenge. So legal framework, good. But what is it that we need to do to ensure that we translate that to what we do on a daily basis? So key challenge, restriction on freedom of expression and opinion, barriers to freedom of association and assembly, threats to liberty and security of the person. So the impact is human rights defenders cannot operate freely because you constantly look at your back. Who is following me? Who is listening to what I'm saying? Am I safe? So as we limit the ability of human rights defenders to operate, is that we limit the space for promotion and protection of general human rights within the country. So what are we looking at? Existing legal measures provide a solid base, but we need to have a conversation on how do you translate this into opportunities for long-term reforms. I think we've said a couple of times that the Constitution is no longer new. We kept talking of 2010, the new 2010 Constitution. It's no longer new. So how do we translate what we have into actions that, one, will support promotion and protection of human rights, but two, will provide human rights defenders with a space where they can operate and where they can freely express themselves. The issue of strengthening legal commitments. There are a couple of documents that we need to ratify, particularly optional protocols. Number two, the country need to accept a visit from the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights Defenders. I know he's made a few requests. Then the implementation of court decisions, particularly on the objects. We know this has been lagging behind. Of course, there's a team that has been put down to help in doing this, but the progress of implementing this has been very slow. So institutional and policy reform, a conversation about establishing and operationalizing a multi-agency team on enforced disappearances. And we make this recommendation alive to the fact that enforced disappearance remain a challenge to us as a country. And we know even state agencies are struggling with how best to deal with it, particularly the Office of the Attorney General. We've had conversations at a higher level on the need to have a multi-agency team. So can we have this multi-agency team operationalized to assist with dealing with issues of enforced disappearances? Because moving forward, I mean, we are likely to see more. Again, the national policy on human rights defenders that will particularly guarantee promotion and protection of their rights when doing their work. And I think finally on institutional reforms is, can we focus more on integrating human rights into the training of the military, training of the police, training of prison officers, training of law enforcement officers from county governments, training of any person, a human rights, ensuring that at various levels, those that deal with human rights defenders, those that deal with members of the public, one of the core trainings that they must undertake is a focused training on human rights. On freedom of expression and information, we need to review and dismiss these slap suits. We know how prohibitive and inhibitive they are to human rights defenders and how they stop them from doing their work. So can we review this? And then this is particularly to Media Council of Kenya, and I've seen my colleagues. I need to do a survey compliance with Access to Information Act. Freedom of Assembly and Association, amend the laws, National Police Service Act, Community Registrations Act to align with rights protection. Participation in public affairs, enact Article 10, Article 100, and the public participation legislation. I know the public participation bill, I think, is an advanced stage. So we might possibly have it before the end of this year. Then particularly on business and human rights, of course, we've developed a national action plan and policy, but we need to work on a human rights due diligence framework. And we are saying that as we work on this due diligence framework, human rights defenders must be part and parcel of it so that they provide critical input into it. And the reason why we are focusing on human rights defenders is because we know that human rights defenders focusing on abuses, particularly by multinationals, particularly by big businesses, we know that this greatly affects them. So can we have them input into this? Then on freedom and security of the person, the National Coroner Service Act. This one we have sung, and I think we'll still continue to sing it. Can we have it operationalized? Can we have it implemented? Because we know the role that this will play, particularly when it comes to death in police custody. I think, colleagues, it's important to note that deaths in police custody occur almost on a daily basis in this country. So the operationalization of this act, colleagues, is important. So can we continue to do advocacy for operationalizing the National Coroner's Service Act? when these two acts came, the National Coroner Service Act and the Prevention of Torture Act, I know a couple of us that were working on this space were very excited because we knew we've literally broken the ceiling with this. Unfortunately, they have remained as that. And I think, but finally on this, is the issue of investigating and prosecuting misconduct against human rights defenders, particularly by law enforcement agencies. And I rest my case. Thank you. Great. So I want to open this up very quickly. And I want to invite Olal. I want to invite Lorna, and I want to invite Livingston Nyando and Drenis, just to give me very quick reflections before we open this up in at most 30 minutes. So please come with your tables, with your chairs to the So colleagues, thank you for joining us once more. I think we can switch off this, Italy. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Great. So colleagues, thank you. I mean, you've listened to me, and I know I also shared an advanced copy of this report with all of you, and I really want to hear your quick reflections, particularly Lorna, Olal, and Livingston. Just your quick reflections on the report and whether what the findings that we shared this morning, what does it mean to you? Lorna.
Thank you so very much for this. If I were going with first response, I would say that your presentation captured pretty much everything that would need our attention. That would need our attention as communities, populations, movements wishing to see this country achieve its greatness. What I see is there are certain things, like someone had said when it came to the police. Yes, the police receive instructions to act. They do. When we think about institutions, institutions are made of people. Institutions are designed on values and principles. The people who get into those institutions need to reflect on their own values and principles and align their values and principles to the institutions they join, rather than get into an institution and consider yourself an independent force that has your own values and principles. Transaction with conviction. What do I mean by that? Is
either msimamo for sale or simply a disconnect between what I believe in personally, what I am going to do with my life on a daily basis, and where I'm going to take this entire progression of my lifespan. Blaming institutions is tantamount to being blind to where the problems actually sit. And they sit closer to home, closer to me, myself, I. What are my convictions? And do I hold this business of human rights for all? The words we speak, the words we write. You've said Kenya has great legislation, great law. Do we believe deeply in ourselves, me as I? Do I believe this, or am I just going to be operating in my own form and fashion with other things? I would like to thank you very much for that presentation, and that, for me, would be something worth publicizing.
Individuals that work in them. Thank you. Olal.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I think the report speaks to what human rights defenders went through during the time in question. I remember at that time is when most of our Twitter accounts were shut because of advocating for the revolution, the high cost of living. At that time, I remember when we had a press conference, then the leadership of the social justice movement was summoned by the Inspector General to go and, because at that time, I remember when we did a press conference, the police had killed around 21 people and COVID had killed 13. So we were asking who is the pandemic, and we were summoned for that. So, and also during that year, Sabasaba 2020, 63 human rights defenders were arrested for participating on protest, and they were using the COVID laws that saying, you don't have a right to protest. So I can confirm that at that time, the report captures what we went through. And very fast, looking at then and now, I think by 2020, looking at then and now, I think things are worse. Because right now, organizing a protest in town, it is a state event with the president commenting, the police, the governor, the goons. So it's becoming extremely difficult to organize a protest. It is difficult. So the Article 37 right now is like it's under state of emergency. It is under suspension, and it is something that we need to speak out very clearly. And also the issue of when I went through the report, one thing I did not see is asking for accountability. We have the laws, all those laws from international to local. But what about accountability? What about the police who stops protests that are legal? That needs to come out very, very clearly, because once there is no accountability, we are not doing anything. The use of legal regimes, right now, registering a social justice center in a community is becoming very difficult. People have to look for new names that are not related to social justice centers. We are still facing challenges. It is now women are being raped during protests. That is something that is extremely worrying, and no action has been taken. The 25th protest, women were raped. No one is speaking about it loudly, and it's reaching a place where it is becoming difficult for women to come out to go to protest. So I think it's offering an opportunity for us to think about how do we move in apart from launching the report. And finally, the right to to defend rights also have the right to defend organizations that defend our rights. Like the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Right now, the leadership that is being proposed, it first does not respect gender equality. You cannot have the chair and the vice chair both male. Secondly, when you want to enter LSK, you need to be a lawyer. Why is it that when it comes to Human Rights Commission, we are just given people who don't know their human rights background? It is also something that we need to speak about. Thank you.
All I'll say is that organizing a public demonstration has become a state event. That's very strong. That's very strong, colleagues, for us to reflect on. Okay? That's very strong for us to correct. Thank you, Lal. You coordinate defenders.
Yes, we do. Defenders Coalition is the organization that is primarily concerned with the protection of human rights defenders, and that's what we do. So, looking at the report, the period is 2020 to 2022. I think that's, and you gave them a ranking of 36, overall 36%. If you are to do another ranking for last year and this year, they'll get a negative, I'm sure. Based on what has happened, the situation is more worse than it was before. Because those previous years we used to protect, maybe support, maybe 200 at most, maybe 100 and something. But last year itself, the people that we had to support, the year 2024 was over 2,300. This year is worse. We are past 2,000, and we are not even towards the end of the year. So those are challenges that we are facing as human rights defenders. And it's been said by my fellow panelists about when it comes to that we don't lack the laws that are there. For instance, when you look at Article 244C, which provides that the police are supposed to actually comply with human rights and the constitutionality standards when implementing that, when implementing their work, that makes them human rights defenders by law, by the Constitution, which is our supreme law that we should abide to. Everyone should, but then they don't do that. So that's another challenge. And they're supposed to also to be independent of the from the executive. We also have the ODPP also that we also talked about. Also, they also have a role. And, I'm happy that they're represented here, because we've seen that there's also another arm that they're being also used to actually cause mayhem to our human rights defenders, especially when it comes to bringing what we call miscellaneous applications, and wanting to hold our human rights defenders for, say, 3 weeks, for a month, for instance. We have human rights defenders that we are yet to institute cases to them. They've been brought to court, and then we are asking for investigation for another 1 month or 3 weeks to do an investigation. And these people, sometimes they're denied bail, and the arrest happens on Friday, so that you can hold them towards over the weekend for 3 nights before you present them to court. And you present them on Monday, and then you ask for another 21 days to hold them as you do investigations. And then when after the lapse of 21 days, you ask for extension of the same, and that happens. So our ask to, as part of the recommendation that we can, is that these independent arms of the government should actually not be used to actually violate the rights of human rights defenders. And as the commissioner said, if we defend the rights of human rights defenders, we defend the rights of all of us. So they play a pivotal role when it comes to ensuring that we get justice ourselves. So we know that we don't have, the report says we don't have any law that specifically speaks to human, something that we need to do, but still, we still also have other laws that are there that we not implemented. You talked about National Coroner's Service Act that is yet to be implemented. So that's something that also we need to look at in depth. So how are we going to implement the laws that exist? And I've talked about ODPP that is established at Article 157, that they have powers even to instruct the Inspector General on investigations. Are they doing that, for instance? So when they're brought also to court, currently what happens is that the judiciary also provides higher bail amounts that is beyond human rights defenders. And we know human rights defenders are people, mostly people from those humble backgrounds. They can't afford. The reason that they are fighting for human rights, one of the motivations is that their rights have been violated. They can't afford it. If you can afford it and you have all the powers that are there, you wouldn't even need to be a human rights defender. You'll use your powers to get what you want. But the fact that they come from humble backgrounds, they've been denied other accesses, meaning some of them have been denied jobs, they've been denied education. So that motivates them even to fight for human rights. And when you brought these cases, and then when they're given what you call those higher bails that they cannot afford, 200,000 for instance, and when those charges are brought to them, that we know that these people were demonstrating. And we are telling the judiciary that they live in this country, they're not strangers in Jerusalem. They know that whatever has been happening in the country. So they need to take judicial notice and know what is happening. So when these cases are brought to them, they just don't need to be blind and say, oh, we are going to just give you this bail because you've been charged of terrorism charges, for instance. You've been charged with arson, for instance. So they bring that's ways of bringing those. So they are actually going around the law to misuse the same laws to actually violate the rights of human rights defenders. So that's something we need to look at as independent commissions, because the day we have everyone fearing to be human rights defenders, that's the day we lose the country. That's the day we also suffer. Because human rights defenders defend everyone's rights. They defend the rights of the police, they defend the rights of the people in the government, they defend the rights of people after the government. So at a given time, you'll need them. You've seen the former deputy president now needing the human rights defenders. When he was in power, he didn't need them then. He was talking ill about them, talking about ill about demonstrations and those picketing. So at one given time, you'll need them. So whenever you're in the office, we actually urge people to actually be at the forefront in defending human rights defenders. Because at one given point in your life, you'll need, your right will be violated, and you'll need these defenders to come at your step. So we recommend, the recommendations are very nice, and we endorse them as Defenders Coalition, and we feel like we need to also do another report maybe for this period of time, especially between 2024 and 2025, and you'll be shocked the results you'll get. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Renis, I'll come to you last, but I want to get back to Lorna. Lorna, you work with, allow me to use the word special group, if you allow me. So you work with a special kind of group, and I know they face challenges. So what will be your asks to various agencies, particularly when it comes to defending the rights of that group? And what will also be your ask just when it comes to defending the rights of human rights defenders in general?
Thank you for that question. So, special group. There are folks that would be exceedingly uncomfortable to hear the acronym LGBTQ+. That's the acronym. Special group, yes. Supreme Court declared special protection status, but this has been fought. It's a complex issue because you're dealing with value systems, you're dealing with, it's a lot. Point being that we are Kenyan citizens, number one. When it comes to human rights defenders, and we've had conversations with Defenders Coalition for the longest time on the fact that the entire population ends up being victimized. It's not a human rights defender, possibly like Olal, who will get up in the morning, go to the social justice center, do social justicing, come back home and be Olal, the dad, the brother, the uncle, the father, the guka. We don't do that. Our lives are at risk from beginning to end. All. So even these questions, because the questionnaire was 161 questions. And I was like, how do we answer this? Because we were asked. Was it August in 2023? There was a meeting. And we said, look, this cannot apply to us. There are things in here that we are not reflected in any documentation. We basically are out here taking care of ourselves. We have said, in the absence of protections from state, we will do our things, and we do. COVID came, We took care of ourselves. We put our monies together, we distributed. So when it comes to that which I have said, it boils down to individual positioning. Am I a human rights defender? And mark you, Olal, we've had fights. We've had fights. We've had fights where I've told you your social justice centers don't cater to the people I serve. Is that a value system? Is that because some rights are different? Those are questions that we can have ideological battles badai. But for me, it's basically individual level, because we will be present, we will show up. Whether it's doctor strike, nurses strike, students strike, people strike, Kenyan strike, women strike, what is this? End femicide strike, and every time we will show up, because we believe that we are everywhere and everyone deserves a fighting chance. So as far as we are concerned, we will continue to show up. We are not going anywhere. We will continue to show up. What we would hope is for people at individual level to reflect on themselves and wonder to themselves, would I show up? Just think on that. That's all. The thing that I would ask, even as we are thinking on that, and I'll use a different parallel, is when women human rights defenders end up getting hurt, getting killed, for example, the ones that you have mentioned, rape during a protest. We've known women human rights defenders that have been murdered. But what do we end up doing to them? What do we end up doing to their reputations? What do we end up using to make ourselves feel better for the fact that a woman human rights defender was out there and then got killed? We'll call her all sorts of names. We will blame her for something she may or may not have done in line with whatever she's doing. Therefore, I will still take it back to individual level. Am I a human rights defender for all? I will tell you, yes. It doesn't matter who you are or what you do or where you come from, what you believe in. If you need me, I will be present. Can we say the same? As far as distinct asks, it would be fabulous if the government could simply enforce some of these things, like implement some of these things. For example, when we're saying the right to peaceful protest. Peaceful protest does not mean people calling on other people to come and harm communities that they deem as undesirable. If you can stop those insightful protests, perhaps you are making steps forward. People who are peacefully protesting need to be allowed to peacefully protest. And the ones who are protesting to harm and to incite need to be stopped.
Thank you.
I could go on.
Thank you, Lorna. Thank you. Olal, I know there's a time you had a lot of cases in court. How did they ever end up? And what are your specific asks as we look at this report? Of course, there are recommendations that we provided, but what would be your specific asks, particularly to the group that you work with, who are social justice centers, those people that are affected at the local level, people who are the first responders of human rights violations, the first people that do documentation, the first people that every person comes to and looking for help? What will be your specific ask beyond what we have provided for?
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'll say a case takes within around 4 to 5 years to complete one case. So there was a time I had like 5. So I can say 20 years of my life has been following up cases in court. So that needs to be looked at. But on the specific asks, one, we need to understand that the space for human rights defenders has grown. Because right now, being a blogger, blogging is like a crime. Blogging against the state is a crime. So bloggers are human rights defenders right now. Media are human rights defenders, although they don't know. Most of the time they think they are not. They are human rights defenders. That's what protest. So the space has grown. Even artists, you know, there's a way we draw Kasongo and you are in for it. So even artists, right, are human rights defenders. So I'll ask the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, Knchr, now to even widen the scope of who a human rights defender is. It is even now we have police officers who are human rights defenders. We are saying things are not okay, and they are arrested, and we have to defend their rights. So that is one ask. We know that the space has grown for human rights defenders. My ask to the ODPP. I know the ODPP team is here.
It's a big team.
It's a big team. Very good. Thank you for welcoming a big team. There's no way Olal can be a terrorist. Everyone knows me. Everyone knows Boniface Mwangi. Everyone knows human rights Garang. The moment you accept a charge, and you know what terrorism has done for this country, and then you accept a charge that now Olal is being charged for terrorism. And you know, in a protest, you know those people who hired goons, who burned stations and businesses, they are well known, including their mobilizers. Now you turn that charge against a human rights defender. It is, I don't know what word to use. So my ask to the ODPP, when a charge comes to you, you are in this country, someone said, you see Sabasaba, you see the protesters, you see the politicians who are mobilizing. Then I, the peaceful one, is the one who is being charged with such charges. It is not right. And this also goes to the judiciary. You see? That's why we need to discuss, do these people, do they exist in this country? The cases of femicide, what do we need to do about them? So they ask to the ODPP specifically, when it comes to human rights, we need to be don't accept a charge against a human rights defender. And at the back of your mind, you know what happened in the country. Let us cooperate. We previously had a discussion with the former office of ODPP, where they asked all the cases for human rights defenders and they were withdrawn. I will ask if that can happen again, because so many people are in court or in prison for things that they did not do. So they ask to the police. Police, nyinyi ni wa Kenya, you are Kenyans like us. You see how the country is going. For once, stand with the people. That is my ask to the police. Thank you.
Thank you, Lal. I think you have very specific asks, so the various agencies have taken them into consideration. Nyando, any other ask apart from the asks you shared? Because you coordinate defenders, and you know what defenders face on a daily basis. I know when push comes to shove, you are the one that has to appear and say, hey, look here. So any specific ask you could.
You know, there's something you said that these laws have to be translated to Kiswahili or any other local languages. And I was looking at Article 7, which says the national language of Kenya. Sub-Article 1, national language of Kenya is Kiswahili. And Sub-Article 2 says the official language of Kenya is Kiswahili and English. So, and bear in mind, you have to note that they started with Kiswahili as official language, and then English came later. So, Swahili has been given mipo sifa mbili, yani ni lugha ya kitaifa na pia ni lugha rasmi. Kwa hivyo tuna jukumu la kizalendo sisi kama Wakenya kujifunza na kukienzi Kiswahili. Lakini lugha ambazo nyingi zinazotumika ni lugha ya kikoloni, King'eng'e. Sawa. Kwa hivyo sisi wenyewe tunakosea katika huo muktadha wa kuwa sisi tunapeana nafasi kubwa kwa lugha ya Kiingereza hata kwa huu mkao. Kwa hivyo kuna kuna jukumu ya sisi kama chochote ambacho tunaandika rasmi kukitafsiri kwa lugha ya Kiswahili ama kutafuta wakalimani wa kutusaidia katika ile kuikifahamu zaidi, kusudi ile mwananchi wa kawaida ile wa chini apate kukienzi na kukielewa kwa lugha iliyostahili. Je, hii ripoti ya leo kwa mfano, je, imetafsiriwa kwa lugha ya Kiswahili na ikafikishwa mashinani kwa mwenye yule ambaye haelewi lugha ya Kiingereza kukielewa? Because English has been used as a measure of intelligence most of the time. So that's one of the challenges. And it is within the Constitution that requires that. And Article 7, we do that. So all communication, official communications, are supposed to have that provisions of using English as a language of communication. But that does not happen. And that has been used also, even in the court languages they use English most of the time. So when you use Swahili, the judicial officer does not understand it. That's in court, and we learn it in Swahili. It's a compulsory subject, and all of us did it. So those are things that what we are saying is that we don't have lack of laws. The laws that are there have not been implemented. The way you want them to be implemented. So we are failing. What we are failing is we are failing to implement. And my biggest ask to, especially to this, when we promulgated this constitution that we have, it's not new anymore, as you say. In 27th of August 2010. One of the things that we created was these independent commissions. And these independent commissions were supposed to be our anchor, our savior, so that they can save us from the excesses of the executive, which has always happened. But the challenge we have is these commissions don't recognize, they're not cognizant that they're independent themselves. They're actually seeing to the whims of the executive. One of the things we are looking at currently the National Police Service Commission that are trying to claim their space currently. It's something that I raised in the year 2020. They have the powers for appointment of any police officers, including the Inspector General. They have that power. But look at it and that's constitutional. And constitution is the supreme law of the land. So how about, and no any other law should contradict constitution, because it becomes null and void to the extent of that inconsistency when you consider the Constitution. And it gives National Police Service Commission powers to recruit, promote any police officer, including the Inspector General of Police. But look at how the Inspector General are appointed. The president just comes out and picks someone and presents that person to Parliament without the involvement of National Police Service Commission. And they're happy they're happy with that. They don't do anything about it. They don't even claim, they don't even take cases to court for that matter, just to claim their space. So we are looking at these independent commissions, not taking their roles as envisioned in the Constitution. And I've given an example of the National Police Service. National Police Service itself, the police, are supposed to be independent from the executive. They're not supposed to take illegal orders. And orders, if the cabinet secretary have to issue orders, it has to be written order. But most of the orders we see them as roadside declarations by the minister, by the president, when he says shoot their legs, for instance, and they take those orders, for instance, seriously. And when they are left in the when justice comes to claim, then they're on their own in the dock. So that's something that we're reminding them. So when push comes to the shove, you'll be on your side, and then you have to be on the right side of the history, because at the end of the day, it's a legacy that you leave after all those years. The leaders will come and go, but at the end of the day, you stay there. So the ask is that they should take their constitutional roles seriously. Article 157 establish the office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, give them that independence that they have. They can withdraw all the cases, the criminal cases that are there, that they feel this criminal case don't meet the threshold that are required. The Article 260 give the judiciary independence that they have from the whims of the parliament. They should take that seriously and ensure that they address the gap. And where there are no clear laws that are there, they can come up with those precedents. Actually, they have a role of making laws through those judicial precedents and those pronouncements that they can do. They take that seriously and fill those gaps that they feel they are there. So, and independent commissions like Kenya National also, we have powers. You can also institute those. You can also bring a petition the judiciary, especially to ensure that the laws that are there are implemented. And I was talking about. I've been telling Olal that some of the cases that he's been awarded by the court, but Most of them is yet to be paid. It will be millionaire by now, by this time round. I know Harambee Stars were promised the other day and they got their money. But for years it's not. Because we studied him at law school, when he studied human rights law. I was also telling him he can also claim that money from the universities for using his name for the same. So thank you very much. I think those are my asking. Everybody should take their role seriously. The constitutional provisions that are providing, and our laws are very clear. And those that we've not implemented, those that we've not rectified, we can rectify them so that we can have a good country for all of us. Thank you very much.
Lorna wants to say something last, then I'll give Rennie the last opportunity. Before we get to launch the report. Lorna.
Thank you so much. Before I rest my case, I had one very specific query to Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. And that is something that may be a thing for us to be very worried about. Does the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights have a stand on the use of long-range acoustic devices, LRADs, when it comes to the use of force and firearms? Is this something that has hit your radar? Long-range acoustic devices, LRADs. And the reason why is because in the last protest, something happened that very few people can explain. On the ground, people that were present, very few can explain what happened, but something happened, and it is entirely possible the entire group that was moving suddenly dispersed. That doesn't happen, and that's not natural. That's not natural. Including, we can throw toxins in tear gas. We can throw toxins in crowd control, the water guns. But LRADs are the things that we need to worry about. And this, for me, is a question directly to the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Asante sana.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to ask, Rennie has been silent. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights has a partnership with the National Bureau of Statistics, including having a memorandum of understanding on work around data for promotion and protection of human rights. We happen to be one of the few NHRIs around the world that has such a working memorandum with a National Statistical Office, NSO. And we've seen the benefits of this, particularly when it comes to using data for promotion and protection of human rights. One of the things we are really pushing at the Commission is the conversation about using what we call citizen-generated data. This is data that is generated by non-state actors, but does not get its way into the official statistics. So the Commission has actually been designated as the custodian, particularly for data on 1610.1. And we happen to be, again, one of the few countries in the world that has submitted data under this particular indicator. And kudos to all of you that in one way or the other have supported us. So I just wanted Rennie to say something about use of data, particularly citizen-generated data, for purposes of promotion and protection of human rights, and how you see the role of all these actors in the room, how they can support you. Rennie.
Thank you, Samson, and thanks to all. First, I want to congratulate the Human Rights Commission for working on this report. It's part of what we declared when we were doing the MOU, that we need to produce as much statistics as possible. So I'm happy with the Human Rights Commission. Now, from our side, as the custodian of official statistics, we came to realize that most of our data sources are basically administrative data, surveys, censuses, yet we have a lot of data that is lying outside here. So we are now coming up with what we call citizen-generated data framework, where we want civil societies to come up or out and give us the data they have. But we normally have what we call verification. We don't just accept any data to be official. We have to verify. And I'm happy that for the SDG 1610.1, we've been doing the verification, and we have up-to-date data up to 2024, and I want to thank all of you for that. We've included that in our current statistical framework for SDGs, and that is a good point for Kenya as a country. So I want to request all of us that if at all you have any data on human rights, not just on defenders, any data on human rights, bring it to us, we verify. We have what we call Kenya Quality Assurance Framework Knchr that we normally take our stakeholders through. We do some capacity building on what it takes for maybe, for example, as data from civil society to be accepted as official data. And we are always receptive. You know, most of the people fear us like, oh, KNBS will reject our data. We've come to realize that we need you people. Our data is not enough, or the data produced by the government is not enough. So feel free to bring the data. And I want to challenge all of us. Data on human rights is underreported. In fact, if I may say, apart from the SDG 1610.1 data, we have no data. When you look at our economic survey, we get information from most of these institutions, ODPP, the rest, National Police Service. But I've always challenged the National Commission on Human Rights that we want to see your data in the economic survey, for example, to hold you people accountable, and also to show people out there that you people are working. And also to link the data you have with other data, like crime statistics. If we have your data inside that section of crime statistics, I believe we'll have several questions answered. So that's what I can say for now. Yeah.
Thank you, Denise. I think one of the commitments, and my colleagues from our sector, Wangeshi and team, I want us to give a commitment to KNBS that in the next economic survey report, we want to see data on human rights violations. So I'm challenging you. Omondi, I'm challenging you. Wangeshi, I'm challenging you. Who is the other person I want to challenge? I'm challenging all of you. Nyanda, I'm challenging you. Olala, I'm challenging you. That I want to see our data. Lona, I want to see our data, human rights data, go into the economic survey report. I always make this joke that when that happens, I'll go sleep with shoes on, because I would have accomplished a big part of my task of really having data about human rights violations being shared across and being seen so that it's acted upon and becomes data that can be used for purposes of promotion and protection of human rights. Lona, I take note of what you have said, the use of long-range response. I take note of that, and I think it's something we are going to deal with as the commission. So colleagues, asanteni sana. Thank you so much for listening to us. And we now want to launch the report. So I want to ask that this team remains here. I want to ask Clarice to join us here. And I want to ask Handa to join us here. And I ask my sister Wangeshi. And I ask Lynn to join us here. And my brother from ODPP, one of you to join us here. Then where's Commissioner? So that's your part. Done. Okay, we are waiting for our commissioner just a minute so that we can do the launch. Then immediately after, we'll be inviting you for tea. Then for the media, we have set up a room for you in case you have some questions. Take a few questions from you. So just outside here, there's a room called Nyambene. So just go there. But after you've taken a couple of help me get our commissioner. Okay, our commissioner. Now we are officially launching the report. Commissioner Sarah Bonaya, go ahead. Yeah, a round of applause. Thank you very much. So the report is now officially launched. We'll be getting copies of the report shortly. Let us see what we have there. Okay, a better club. Congratulations to Knchr and the entire team that's behind this launch. So we're going to have a few photos. So let me have those. So the first photo will have Samson and the commissioner and Clarice. Anna and Clarice. The four of you, please come. Please come. The first photo, the four of you, Samson, commissioner, Clarice. Yeah, the four of you. Samson, you need one. Yeah, so let's have that photo. Smile, smile. This is a great milestone. Okay, thank you. Let me have the rest of the team joining. You can stand in two lines. And then after that photo, we'll be welcoming you for a cup of tea. You can do two lines. Thank you. The last photo, let me have Samson, the commissioner, and have them stay there. Thank you very much. We have enough copies for all of us, so you'll get a copy. In the meantime, I think it's time for tea. Samson, how do you go about that? Phoebe, kindly give us directions about how you're going to take tea. Yes. So, colleagues. So, colleagues, 2 minutes, then we are done. 2 minutes. Can you all sit down? 2 minutes. Great. So, colleagues, 2 minutes and you're done. So, allow me to thank you immensely for creating time to come and witness this great milestone for the Commission. For me and for us as a Commission, we all play an important role in this space of promotion and protection of human rights. And the rallying call is really, can we all step up? So I want to thank everyone that joined us this morning, of course, KNBS, ODPP, the German Embassy, Defenders, Special Justice Centers, Mid-Rift, National Crime Research Center, Nairobi County, IMLU, my friend Wangeshi, GALC, Global Action, the delegation, OHCHR, Clarice, KHRC, Kituo cha Sheria, National Assembly, and we have recommendations that are very targeted to you, Office of the Attorney General, IPOA, the Media Council, CAJ case, GEC, and of course the apologies that we've also gotten. I want to thank my colleagues at the commission. Where are they? The guys that we help in putting this together. That is a great team. I did not do this by myself. I have that great team behind me. I'm just the face. So thank you, colleagues, for literally burning the midnight oil, both in writing, in the data collection, and even leading to this successful launch. You are my heroes, and I look forward to doing more and more of this. So colleagues, we look forward to disseminating this. We look forward to doing more advocacy towards its implementation. And the challenge you have given us is to do another series of 2023, 2024, 2025. And I assure you we are up to the challenge. And we will call you here to release it again to you. We've developed very targeted advisories arising from this report, which again we'll be inviting you as we launch them and share it to various actors, National Police Service, the Attorney General, the Office of the Inspector General, IPOA, and all those actors as we call them to action so that they all take their space in this conversation. So thank you very much, and I wish you a good day ahead, and we look forward to partnering with you at the Commission in this space of promotion and protection of human rights. Asanteni sana. You are welcome to take breakfast. It was a breakfast meeting, so please don't leave without taking breakfast. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much. So the media, you can have a cup of tea first, then we meet after how many minutes? 10? Nyambene, just walk out, take your left and straight. Nyambene room there.